Hello, I'm Richard Ridge for Broadway World. Carnegie Mellon University continues their mission of the arts and arts education. And this year they once again honor their CMU alumni and celebrate their individual Tony Award nominations. So please say hello to Tony Award winning producer, Jamie deRoy. Hey, Jamie, it is great to see you. First of all, how are you and where are you?
Well, I'm in my very messy office, which is always messy. My cat knocked this book down yesterday, The Organized Executive, of which I am so disorganized. I guess it got put away. I never read it.
Well, listen, it's a busy office. Like I said, how have you been handling and dealing with this ongoing pandemic?
I mean, it's hard because I'm used to going out almost every night and seeing something, whether it's in the theater or cabaret. It could be Broadway, off-Broadway, Carnegie Hall, Town Hall, and any of the cabarets, and to just be, and dinner is usually part of that before or after. So that's all gone. And just getting out during the day and going to places, into places. I keep thinking that it's like a bad dream and I'm going to wake up one day, but it's reality for now. I just hope the reality is soon to be over.
Yeah. Have you been able to stay creative?
Well, I've been doing my TV shows. Before I was always promoting, Broadway, off-Broadway, cabarets, live events, books occasionally. But now what I'm doing is I'm going back over the last 30 years of archives that I have in my videos, and I'm making theme shows. So we've done a lot of different themes. I've honored a lot of people that we've gone but not forgotten, and I'm working on the 5th version of that for early next year. We're doing a holiday show for the next couple of weeks. I do a thing called Strings Attached, where we feature string instruments, violins and guitars and whatnot. I'm still looking for my harpists. I'm having trouble finding them on the tapes. Yeah. And just various things. And, just delving in the archives has really been fun, whether it's from a couple years ago or, from when I started in 1990 and 91 and 92 in the early days. I mean, the 3rd show I did, Steve Allen showed up and he got up and sang. He'd been sending me parodies. I mean, just tons of parodies in all of his songs. And I always did his songs, the start of Something Big. And then we rewrote it. Barry Kleinbort rewrote it for me to make it funny and up to date and everything. And he sent me this thing. He showed up and I said, well, maybe you should sing it instead of me. It's going to be much better. And he did. And it was great fun.
That is great.
We gave him a salami. He said, in case you didn't know, we called these Louisville Sluggers.
I love that. Jamie, where can people find your show?
Well, it's on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, which is part of Spectrum. Yeah. It's also on Verizon and Vios. They're different channels. I'd almost have to look at my sign off to get those channels, which I'm afraid if I touch this screen, I'll mess something up.
No, but the great thing is all anybody has to do is Google you, because I know when you Google Jamie deRoy and Friends, all the times and locations all come up. I mean, you're very, you're very easily Googleable.
I had no idea.
Yeah, totally.
And when I was growing up, Google was like, if you Googled somebody, you were like, oh, wow, I love that person. It's not doesn't mean the same as it does today.
Yeah. Well, like I said, all anybody has to do, your stuff is all over the internet. Your show is really, really wonderful. I want to get into CMU because you, of course, are a CMU alumni, and I want to congratulate you on your Tony nominations this year. I mean, you have 2 Best Play nominations. You have The Inheritance by Matthew Lopez. You have Slave Play by Jeremy O. Harris. You have a Best Play Revival nomination, which of course is Frankie and Johnny by the late great Terrence McNally. And you have a Best Musical nomination with Tina, the Tina Turner musical. What do these incredible shows and these Tony nominations mean to you this year, Jamie?
Well, I think, I don't know, especially this year, it just feels like almost so much more important, even though there's no Tonys to get dressed up for and go, have fun. I mean, one of the great things about CMU and their connection with the Tonys is they always do a pre-party. That's where I met Blair Underwood one year, and we became pals, and he's nominated this year. I feel bad for him that there's no actual award ceremony this year. And Peter, well, he's been to a few, I mean, so he's had that experience, but I don't know. It's just such a special time, but it just more so for me as a co-producer, I feel like it really gives Adrienne Warren in Tina Turner, starring in Tina Turner, and everybody involved with Tina that has been nominated. It just gives them validation that they don't have to wait for another year. It's been so long already. And Matthew Lopez, who did just a genius job with The Inheritance. And Jeremy O. Harris, I mean, I backed his daddy when it was at the Vineyard, so I met him. So when they were bringing Slave Play to Broadway, I just felt like, listen, I started with him. I'm gonna continue with him because he's really got something special. He's really somebody to contend with, as is Matthew. And Frankie and Johnny has just always been a favorite, and it's like a twofold thing. I mean, Terrence McNally, I've done a lot of his shows, and I love him dearly. It was just such a terrible loss this year that we lost him to COVID. And also Audra McDonald. I mean, and I had seen Michael Shannon in a play down at Barrow Street. And, you're so close to the stage. He was incredible. And so when I heard that cast and Tom Curtis called me, I was like, of course I'll be there. Because I worked with Tom on the revival of Ragtime. And that always held a very, very, very special place in my heart. So, I don't know. I just, they all have something different to offer, and they're all different reasons of why I get involved.
Yeah. What have your years at CMU meant to you both personally and professionally?
Well, it gave me such a background to work on. And even after you are no longer there, you still have all these alums to call on and commiserate with. So, however it is, so many incredible people that I have met even since I left. And I keep in touch with a lot of the people that I knew when I was there. But, they have different events. At one point, they asked me to produce a play. This is a while ago, not a play, but a cabaret of all CMU graduates. And I did it at the Triad. This is a bunch of years ago. Billy Porter was in it, Kim Director. There was a whole slew of people that I never would have met had it not been for them asking me to do it and helping me to reach some of these people and saying, well, this one went here and this one went here and this one went. And since then, there's even more. I could do a huge, a really big night. And it's been fun. And I'm from Pittsburgh too. So is Billy Porter. So there's a, kind of a double whammy of CMU. Both my parents went there, and it's now a beautiful, beautiful campus. And I went back again, it was either late last year or the beginning of this year for like a council thing, and it was so special, and to see the campus and to run into people that it wasn't exactly a reunion, but it was as close as I've been to one. It was fabulous.
So it was a family. Since your family went there, is that why you decided to go there?
Oh no, I just knew at the time that it was the best drama school. Now, keep in mind that I always wanted musical theater, and they didn't have musical theater then. And since I left, they became one of the foremost musical theater schools in the country. And I'm like, everything has to do with timing.
Yeah.
But it's okay, because I still got a real great foundation and met a zillion fabulous people. I even did summer stock because of my camp counselor, Stuart Howard, before I went to Carnegie Mellon, which, by the way, was Carnegie Tech then. He was at Carnegie Tech. He told me where to go as an apprentice, which the first summer I went to Fish Creek, Wisconsin. And the second summer I went to Westport Country Playhouse, and Bruce Weitz was an apprentice with me. And he went to CMU. And it was just an amazing experience. The summer stock thing. I can't believe that I had this incredible camp counselor as my drama teacher, I was pretty lucky.
That is great. Would you talk about the importance of the arts and arts education and the role that CMU plays and that in their commitment to that?
Well, I love that they honor these teachers, because arts education is so important to everybody. And I don't care if you end up going into the arts or not. It helps build everybody's self-esteem and their self-worth and their confidence. And it does something to your mind that's so fantastic, whether it's music or theater. It doesn't matter. I find that when I go to the Philharmonic and I'm not there for like a musical theater piece, which I love when they do that, but when it's just a real concert, I can close my eyes and it transports me somewhere else that I cannot get in my own home listening to a record or listening to a radio or even on TV. That's the thing that I find so depressing about this time, because look, we're grateful for Zoom because it's what we've got. It's better than nothing, but it will never, ever replace the theater. I have seen a lot of things on Zoom, but it doesn't transport me like theater does when I'm in the room with other people. And it doesn't make me cry, and it doesn't make me laugh the same way. It just can't. I mean, it's kind of like watching your TV. Even the difference of seeing a movie on television versus seeing a movie in a movie theater. I'm a big fan of movie theaters. Big fan. And so I hate to see us lose that. And I hope we don't. I hope that movie theaters will come back too, and that they won't disappear, because that would be really sad. And it becomes an experience too. You make a plan, you make a date, you meet friends. And my favorite thing is to go to a movie or a play or a concert, whatever it is, then go to dinner, and then you talk about and share what you've just seen and what it's done for you. Whether you don't like it or you love it, it still does something to you. And being in the theater is just the most special thing that I think one can do. And you can't recreate it anywhere except in a theater. And I don't care if it's a small theater or a very big theater.
Yeah. Beautifully put. You started out as an entertainer, and then you turned your talents to producing. How does producing fill you artistically, and why did you shift over? How did that all happen?
Well, it was a total accident. I mean, I think my whole career has been an accident.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in musical theater. That was all I thought about. And when I was young, that's what I did in Pittsburgh. That's what I did in camp. When I first came to New York, my first job was the drunkard at the 13th Street Theater, where the musical director was Barry Manilow, who then became my musical director. But when I went to audition for, at the time it was called Ashley Famous Agency, it morphed into International Creative Management, ICM. But they said that they would audition me, but not in theater, that they were full up on, clients there, but they needed people in nightclubs. I'd never sung in a nightclub, but Barry and I were working on songs. We didn't have an act. I just had songs that I sang. So I was taken into this room after this audition, and he opened the New York Times, and he's like reading through it, and he's pointing to the Falls View and the Nevele and the Catskills, the Concord, and all these places, and they were all had big ads in the New York Times. And he says, "This is where we're going to start you." And he said, how many charts do you have? For how many musicians? And I knew what charts were. And I knew I didn't have them. So I said, "Well, how many do you need?" And he goes, 8. We like 8. I said, I can do 8. And I left that appointment and I went to a payphone and I called Barry Manilow and I said, "We need to put an act together and I need charts for 8. He said, "No problem. You practically have an act." And so he did. He created the charts and he had Bill Inglis actually write them out and stuff. And I started working in nightclubs. And then you get kind of stuck where you are. And I was a girl singer opening for comics, mostly men, because there were very few women. It wasn't until I started doing funny songs and getting out of being the girl singer that I opened for Joan Rivers. And that was very unusual to have a female. I wasn't a comedian. I was a funny singer, a musical comedy performer, whatever you want to call it. But working with Joan was just such a delight. And but then I moved. I was living on West 72nd Street for 25 years. I got divorced. I had been renting one of my dearest friend's apartments and kept my own. It was Conrad Bain's apartment. He got into Maud and then Different Strokes. And I was taking over his apartment, but I ended up getting married and I got divorced and I moved back to my apartment. And after living my husband kind of screwed me out of my, that big apartment. After living next to him for several years, I was like, I have to get out of here. So I moved where I am now, and I met Jeffrey Richards, who was a press agent at the time. He invited me to Alice Tully Hall to see a one-night stand of the complete works of William Shakespeare abridged. And I didn't know he had an ulterior motive. So I went, I laughed my head off. I get a call the next day. "So how'd you like it?" And I said, "Oh my God, so funny and so clever. Those guys are incredible." They were called the Reduced Shakespeare Company. Yeah. They were from London. And he said, "How'd you like to produce it?" And I said, "Huh? I never produced except my own shows, my own variety shows and whatnot." And I said, "What does it entail?" He said, "Raising money." I said, "I've never raised money." He said, "Well, why don't you try?" So I did. And it was fun. And then it snowballs. Once you do one, you can't, it's almost like you can't stop. It's my crack.
No,
I don't drink. I do theater.
Yeah, that's great. Because you discovered so many young playwrights along the way and actors. Like you said, you saw Michael Shannon down probably in Bug at the Barrow Street Theater. You look at all this stuff and these young playwrights like Matthew Lopez. I mean, you discover him downtown at Rattlestick or at a small theater, and then you're able to bring, his big epic to Broadway. So that's got to mean a lot to you.
Well, I won't, be held responsible. I wish I could for discovering, all these people. I mean, I have discovered young talent that, I can put in my cabaret shows and the Jamie DeRoy and Friends things. But as far as, usually when I get involved with the project, in most cases that, the project is on its way. The Inheritance had already been in London and was a huge success. And I just was dying to be on it. And I was glad that, I was able to work that out because it was very special. And I just knew it was an important piece of theater. It's like I wanted to be on Coram Boy that also came from London, the National. And when I saw the invited dress, I was in tears. It moved me so much. I said to my friends, this might be, to this point in my life, the most important piece of theater I'll be involved in. Not knowing that other things like Angels in America and The Inheritance are going to, come my way. But, well, the critics did not agree with me. I will tell you that. But the critics in London did. They just didn't agree here. It was an amazing piece of theater. And I will never, for 1 second, regret being involved with it. I don't look at things like, because it didn't make its money back. I can't look at it as a failure, because we did something good by bringing that to the stage. And we gave a lot of actors and a lot of people in the business work. And, they go on to other things. They're seen in that. And, and a lot of them become my friends. A lot of them, Xanthi Elbrick, who was Coram Boy.
Love her. And I love Coram Boy. Coram Boy still is like in my top 15 plays that I've ever seen. I adored that show. So, these things, like you said, you meet these people and they move on to other things, and it's because you helped bring them along here. What are you looking forward to the most once the theater is back, which it's coming back? What are you looking forward to the most, Jamie?
Going to the theater. Yeah. I miss it so much. I mean, obviously, I want to, find my next project. But even before that, there were so many things that were running on Broadway that they're either running, like Ain't Too Proud and Tina. I mean, Company was in previews. It didn't even get to open. There's just too many things that were in the works. I invested in 6. Luckily, I got to see it the night before I did my last show at the Green Room on March 11th. And Julie Halston gets up there and says, it was for the primary stages. Everybody had been in a production of primary stages. And she gets up there and she says, well, apparently we're all going to die tonight. And I was like, no, we were trying to avoid that. And then the next day, 6 was supposed to open, and then everything fell apart.
Yeah.
So
they'll be back. They'll all be back. They'll all be back. I cannot wait like you. I know
the only one that's not coming back, which I also am incredibly sad about, is Hangman, because that was in previews and it was such a great production. And now, it's just they wrapped up camp pretty early on, which is sad because it was so good.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that too. I know the Tony Awards are still ironing everything out. How excited are you for, like you said, your shows or people that you know? How excited are you for this year's Tony Awards, however they're done?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm always excited about the Tony Awards. I mean, it's the biggest validation of the season. And because all the other, Outer Critics and Drama Desk and, everything else had done virtual awards, I was, really hoping that they would do the Tonys, even though it was an abbreviated season. Just because some of those people, if you wait too long, they get forgotten. And I would hate to see people like Matthew Lopez and Adrian Warren and Jeremy O'Harris. If it just gets too long, it might be forgotten. And even Audra, and even though she's got all those awards, it still means something. There's something so special about the Tonys. I mean, I wish we could relive in the next Tonys, just bringing back the people that win this past year so they get their moment, But who knows what's going to happen this year? Who knows what's going to happen next year? I just like to see it happen. And I will take virtual over nothing.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm still going to get dressed up. I'll still put my tuxedo on, sit here with whatever, and we'll put it on virtually or whatever.
And my final question: comfortable pants and comfortable shoes.
Well, that's the great thing about watching this stuff virtually at home. Amy, my final question for you: if you could sum up what CMU means to you.
It has been so special in my life. I never knew at the time that it would become so important. And I think as the years went on, it became more and more important. Today, I was reminded about Stephen Bochco, who I knew from CMU, and the great television shows that he gave us, like Hill Street Blues and LA Law, and, you know, and just sad, so sad that, you know, that he passed away a few years ago. He was such a great guy. And you know, I remember seeing him at a GLAAD Awards in LA, and he was getting an award. And I said, Stephen, had I known you were going to be so famous, I'd have stayed in school all the way to the end. Because he really hired so many CMU people, Michael Tucker and Bruce Weitz. And I mean, there were a lot of people that he knew from college. And, you know, when I was in school, there was this wonderful actress, Elizabeth Hartman.
Yeah.
I was only there a few weeks, and she was like, I guess, just a year ahead of us. And there was a showcase that we all went to see, and she was like mind blowing from just a little showcase. You could see it. And she was leaving school already to go and be in a film. I think it was Patch of Blue with Sidney Poitier. And they were dying to have her not leave, or leave and come back. But, you know, she was such a talent. I mean, some of these people, when you can see it so early on, there's something so special about it. And it's that, you know, that it factor that you can't put your finger on, but it's almost like you know it when you see it.
Well, I'll tell you, this has been great catching up with you. It is always a pleasure.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Well, I can't wait to actually see you in the flesh, so we can actually see each other aisle to aisle at the theater or at a theatrical restaurant, like you said, talking about an incredible night that we spent in the theater.
And hug you again. I would love to hug a person.
I can't wait. Congratulations on all your nominations and everything you do for the theater. It is always great. And everyone, until we see you again, stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, and happy holidays.